Chapter 12. The Family. Family. Anybody who is related to you by marriage, blood, or adoption. They often share resources for at least part of their life and also live together. The nuclear family was coined in the 50s when we started having more nuclear weapons and stuff like that. It's considered to be the normal family in America. So it's the mom, the dad, and the kids. Nothing happened. No divorces, no second marriages, nothing like that. It is the initial marriage and the offspring of that marriage. Okay, two types of families. You have your family of orientation, which is your childhood family, and you can't change that family. It includes your parents and your siblings. Your family of procreation, however, is the family that you create, where you are the mom or dad, and you have you, your spouse, and your kids. That one's completely up to you. The extended family is anybody who has two or more generations of family. So, your parents' parents are your grandparents. Your parents' brother or sister is your uncle or aunt. And then, technically, it's a third ways away from you, but your uncle's kids or your aunt's kids or cousins. You'll feel very close to them, but they're probably not going to live with you. Kinship. Larger groups of people united by marriage, blood, or adoption. There's over 200 possible relationship categories for kinship groups. Stepbrothers, step-cousins, a whole bunch of stuff. Marriage. Monogamy is one spouse. Polygamy is multiple spouses. Polygyny is extra wives. And polyandry is extra husbands. Polygamy is more common for men to have multiple wives, more than women. Polyandry takes place in societies with few women, so if there were, for some reason, a lot of women who got killed or died or whatever, some of those women might actually have more than one husband. Many times a bride is shared amongst brothers, which is not a thing in our country, but does happen in some other countries. Okay. Polygamy is uncommon due to the cost of agriculture and its negative effects on gender-equal societies. So, in agricultural societies where there's not much technology, having extra wives and extra kids helps out a lot. However, if you're in modern society, both parents probably have to work, and if you only have one husband but three wives, well, you're sharing that husband's wealth, or if it was reversed, you'd be sharing that wife's wealth. So it's very unlikely to see that in today's societies. Location. Patriarchality. This is like olden times where the newly married couples lived near the husband's parents, and the woman went to the husband's family and also took the husband's name. We usually still keep the whole husband's last name thing. Neolocality is mostly today, and that's where the couple chooses where to live. And think about your own family. Most of you, their parents chose where to live, but some of you live closer to your maternal grandparents or your paternal grandparents. Inheritance. A patrilineal family is where everything is passed through the father's side, father to son, and then girls' families give dowries to the man's family. So her inheritance is given to her early and is given to her husband. This almost doesn't happen anytime. Then the boy's name is passed down. Okay, a matrilineal, which you found in Native American societies, is the opposite of patrilineal. It's very uncommon that only the woman's name matters and that the man gives all the money to the woman. Okay, a bilateral. All children receive inheritance from the combined resources of both parents. This is what you see nowadays. If your parents died tomorrow, they'd leave you guys all their stuff to you and your siblings. Okay, why do we have marriage? Number one, it can regulate sexual activity. Societies can determine who's allowed to marry. Age minimums can vary by state. Some states the marriage age is 15 or 16 if you have a baby. Some states it's really low. And I do believe there are a few states in this country that have never defined a minimum age. Okay, there's also an incest taboo in this country where we like to stop marriage between relatives. Sadly, weirdly, 26 states still allow marriage between first cousins. This is where you get all those jokes about mostly the South, and as in a moment you're going to see, yeah, it's kind of the South. It's a thing in the Southeast United States where people were more likely to marry first cousins because you just didn't have as many options back in the olden times. Well, some of them haven't really stopped that practice. So, any blue state, you are allowed to marry your first cousin. So, your Uncle Bob had a brother, and your dad has an uncle, your uncle had a kid, so they're your first cousin, but you're allowed to marry him in all these blue states. Okay, light blue is allowed with some exceptions. So in these two states, what you might have is most first cousins can marry unless there's some sort of genetic disease and they don't want you marrying. Okay, light red is most states in America. That is where, the light red is where it's banned with exemptions. So there's a lot of exemptions. And then the medium red, which is like Nebraska and all these places, it's banned. You cannot marry your first cousin. It's not allowed. Okay, and then in dark red are criminal offenses. You go to jail for marrying your cousin. Okay, so these light red might be like you can marry your first cousin if you're not related by blood, something like that. Okay, babies, reproduction. It's where members of the community die and new members have to take their place. You do this if they're having babies. Marriage is considered the formal institution in which to raise children. Obviously, you can raise them outside of it, but marriages are usually better for the kids. And marriage also supports development and security, economic and emotional, for both the parents and the children. Okay, the American family. The majority of Americans are actually not married today. That actually changed a couple years ago. 1/3 of adults above the age of 34 have never been married in their life. It's quite a bit. Love is the most reason for marriage in our country. However, is love for a few people always translate into decades of marriage? You may not love the person, but sometimes things just happen over time that you just don't fall in love anymore. Okay. Most people marry within their same socioeconomic class. If not, it's usually the woman who came from a lower background. And why that might be, for many reasons, sometimes you'll get a wealthy man who's raised in a wealthy family, and he marries for beauty or just general attractiveness. Whereas a woman may not choose a man who's just cute. If he doesn't make a lot of money, she may not be as interested. Okay. Many Protestants marry between sects, so it's not weird for a Lutheran to marry a Methodist, and back and forth, so on and so forth. That often can change very often. A lot of Protestant sects don't technically view the others as incorrect. They're just different. Most religious groups keep it to themselves, so you'll see a lot of Catholics will want to marry a Catholic, Hindus marry Hindus, so on and so forth. 15% of marriages are interracial now, a large increase from the past when bans were in many states until the 70s. Okay, so you actually have interracial marriages went all the way to 2.4% to 14.6%, and that's only in 2008. Okay, family violence is the sad part. All families can experience family violence. Rich and middle classes probably have a smidge less or significantly less, but we can't tell because a lot of rich and middle class families tend to hide it better. Okay, it's estimated that one third of marriages include family violence of some sort. So there could be some sort of slapping, hitting, something in up to 1/3 of marriages. Now, it doesn't mean that it's commonplace. It doesn't mean it happens all the time. But there may have been one incident or one thing that happened and someone got hit. Okay, and it's estimated that 3/4 of parents hit their children. It doesn't mean they beat their children, but at some point a parent might have smacked their kid or done something to their kid that would be considered to be violent. Other stats: 85% of relationship victims are women. Most people would probably agree with this, but up to 15% of relationship victims are actually men, which is probably what some people would expect to not be the case. 10% of all murders are from intimate relationships. So you will find a lot of people in heat of passion. They may kill their spouse or their girlfriend or something because that's the person that they are most connected to in one way or another. Okay. Around 3 million cases of abuse are filed every single year in America. In a country of about 300 million something people, we report 3 million cases of abuse, which sadly means that it's a lot closer to home than many of you would be willing to or hope to even know about. But there's probably not one community in this country that doesn't have some sort of abuse going on in the household. Okay. And around 1,000 children are estimated to have died from abuse every year of one way or the other, which is absolutely horrific.